No, it did not. We added some, everybody knows presentation, but nothing on the agenda changed. We had too many things going on.
I'll tell you. It's been that kind of a day everywhere, I think.
It's been a Monday all over again.
Good evening. Good evening.
Dr. King looked pretty official with the backdrop back there.
How do you like
Yeah.
this?
Yeah.
Right? Thanks to the
Might
Welfare
say
Foundation.
live action news.
That's right.
Yes.
Do you know, if we turn it around, it has like all of our schools, so that, yeah.
That's very cool. We need the dry ice and the smoke and steam
Oh, yeah,
coming
that's
up.
right.
We'll have to do that in December, right?
Yeah.
Got a little trick.
Dim the lights, spotlight.
Good evening. So it is 5 o'clock. Everybody here? Okay. Want to join me in a call to order? Let's have a moment of silence. Thank you. Do we have anybody to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance from Westview, Mr. Ambler? Okay, you want to lead us? Of course. Okay.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Please be seated. Call the roll. I am present. Dr. O'Neill?
Present.
Mr. Heater?
Present.
Mrs. Bales? Present. Mrs. Barnes-Griffin?
Present.
Mr. Irvin?
Present.
Mr. Lowe?
Present.
Thank you. We are on to Westview Elementary.
Good evening. Before I get started here, I would like to yield my time kindly to Dr. Kwiatkowski.
Well, thank you, Eric. I appreciate that.
As do I.
Well, tonight we are going to have a very special recognition. So the Sagamore of the Wabash Award was created during the term of Governor Ralph Gates, who served from 1945 to 1949. The term Sagamore was used by the American Indian tribes of the northeastern United States to describe a lesser chief or a great man among the tribe to whom the true chief would look for wisdom and advice. Each governor since Gates has presented these certificates in their own way. That award is highest honor which the governor of Indiana bestows. It is a personal tribute usually given to those who have been rendered a distinguished service to the state or to the governor. Among those who have received Sagamores have been astronauts, presidents, ambassadors, artists, musicians, politicians, and ordinary citizens who have contributed greatly to our Hoosier heritage. It should be noted that the Sagamores have been conferred upon both men and women. Each governor personally selects the recipients. The governor contacted me because unfortunately he was not able to be here tonight as his plans changed with his recent trip to Egypt. So I am very humbled and honored to stand in for Governor Holcomb to present the Sagamore of the Wabash on his behalf to our very own Jim Williams.
What do we have to call you?
He's our chieftain. Great chieftain.
So thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Governor Holt.
Absolutely.
I don't feel at all worthy of this. And I know you have a football game to get to. This has been the most meaningful, important work of my career. And we have a long way to go. And I thank all of you that sit at this table with me, those who are here this evening. When I think of our kiddos, not just in this community, but across this nation, and what they've been through past couple of years and the struggles that they face, I at times feel the challenge is pretty deep, but I don't want to face it with anyone else but all of you. And President Mearns, Dean Murray, Susanna, everybody at the university who has supported us in this endeavor. This partnership is incredible, and it gives hope. And there's no silver bullet to what ails us in this country, but education is as close as it gets. As close as it gets. And we live in this city, in this county, and we have a wonderful, wonderful community, a top-tier university run by really incredible people, and I've been around the university for 30 years. And I can say that, and this is not a reflection on the leaders who came before them, because they were all very, very good, but I feel as strongly about the quality of leadership at Ball State University as I ever have. They're wonderful, and I feel a sense of profound respect for the leadership in Muncie Community Schools. All of you here tonight, and the faculty, and the challenges that the faculty faces each day, we are blessed. We are facing and dealing with kids who address social, emotional, economic challenges that most of us in this room have been blessed not to have to wrestle with, at least on a frequent basis. And so let's get back to work, and I'll just say thank you, and we got a long way to go.
I was going to have President Mearns also, say a few words to us, please.
Okay.
Thank you, Dr. Kay, and good evening. Listening to the description of the purpose of that award, it's hard to imagine somebody more deserving in our community than Jim Williams. Your commitment to our children, and that's who we're here for, that's what this is all about. Your commitment to our children is truly exceptional. We often hear about servant leaders, and oftentimes I think that phrase can be overused, but I think tonight and in watching Jim work every day on this, that term accurately describes his leadership. We know how hard he works to understand the problems, but as you heard tonight, I think the other element that he brings is a sense of humility, a recognition of how difficult this challenge is. He's clearly passionate and compassionate. Actually, after Jim and the dean made a presentation to our board a few weeks ago, it just had a sense that Jim was feeling the burden of the task. And I think it's a reflection that he appreciates that this task is about our children. And when we took on this responsibility, when the governor invited us to take on this responsibility, and when I spoke in the General Assembly and when I spoke to our board, I talked about at its core, this partnership is a promise of hope to provide every child in Muncie with access to a high-quality public education. That was the promise that we made when we took on this responsibility, this partnership with all of you. And Jim, because of your leadership and because of the service of all of the people here and the faculty and staff all across this district, we're working to fulfill that promise, to deliver on that promise to provide an excellent educational opportunity at a public school for every child in Muncie, Indiana. So Jim, thank you for your leadership. I admire what you do. You're an inspiration to all of us, and we are truly grateful for your leadership and your service. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And before I have Eric stand back up, I'd also like to recognize Jim's wife, Jennifer, who's here tonight. We appreciate Jennifer. And Beth, who's Jim's assistant. I mean, she helps us out greatly also, so thank you too.
You'll excuse me, I have to draw up a couple of plays before the show.
That's right.
I will be there in a bit.
And President Burns, you keep wearing those purple ties. They look good on you. Thank you for that. That's right.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Ambler, back to you.
Thank you, Dr. K. President/Chief Williams, Dr. Kwiatkowski, members of the board, central office staff, good evening. My name is Eric Ambler. I have the pleasure of serving as the principal at Westview Elementary, and I am excited to share a lot of the things that we have going on. And I was telling Mr. Hendershot, who'll be presenting about Project Lead the Way here in just a bit, about I'm excited to talk about Westview, our school. And when I plan for this, I go through everything. I have to cut it in half because there's so much that I'd like to share that I cut it in half again. So hopefully this will be the greatest hits of what I have prepared this evening. And excuse me in advance if I misnavigate the clicker here. Perhaps turning it on first will be a good start. So I'm advancing or trying to advance. Oh, there it goes. Let me back up. A little bit of latency here. Spoiler alert, we have 492 students. Here we go. So as I just said, we are up to about 492 students. We actually got a data digest just yesterday that had us at 499, which makes us the largest elementary school by population in the entire Muncie Community Schools. The breakdown for that, we have one pre-K of 19 students, 4 kindergarten sections, 87 students, 3 first grade sections, 77 students, 3 second grade, 69 students, 3 third grade with 73 students, and 4 fourth grade, 78 students, and 4 fifth grade with 89 students, all respectively. And in those totals, with the exception of pre-K, that also includes our dual language Spanish immersion program. And so there's one section, K through 5. And so our first cohort is very exciting. That our K kiddos for the first cohort of dual language are now 5th graders. And this clicker is not working. I apologize. It's not going as fast as I want it to go here. Speaking of dual language, we are now K5, which is super exciting. Kindergarten, this is the breakdown of native Spanish speakers. We have 4 students who are native speakers of Spanish in K, 3 in first, 5 in second, 2 in third, 2 in 4th grade, and 3 students in 5th grade. I'm going to kind of excuse the clicker here. So I'll click it and then it will not do what it's supposed to do. That's okay. Appreciate it. At any rate, what that last slide that just advanced a little bit too quickly there, it identifies us as what's called a one-way dual immersion program, which means that less than 50% of our students who are enrolled in that program are native speakers of Spanish. And we do aspire to be a two-way, which means we would have 50% or more. And so, thank you, sir. We have, let's scoot back here. Perfect now. That's awesome. I don't know what you did, but thank you. But as far as the composition of our total student population, this is also an exciting thing. Of those nearly 500 students, we have 133 of our student population that are enrolled in that dual language program, which has us right around 26, 27%. So that's very exciting. As far as kind of an overview from where we came from the end of last year, just a quick comparison. From 2021-22, we had one teacher retire. That was our resource teacher. That position for this school year was filled by a Muncie Community School resource teacher transfer. Maybe. We had 2 resignations that were not classroom teachers. They actually had some major life changes and ended up moving. So as far as you know, our teachers and staff leaving, I aspire one day to retire myself, so I would consider that to be good attrition. Major life changes happen. That was one of our intervention teachers that was hired at semester, and then one of our pre-K teacher, she actually moved out of town. But as far as filling those positions, that intervention position was filled within the district through Muncie Community Schools transfer, and then we also had an opportunity for a new hire for our pre-K teacher. And so we are growing, as I mentioned, as far as class populations and student population, and as far as new positions here, I'm very pleased that we actually had such a boost in enrollment this year for our kindergarten classes that we were able to hire a 3rd general education kindergarten classroom. And so as far as new teaching positions, we've assumed that with kindergarten, 4th grade, a new 5th grade position, a new 5th grade dual language position, a new Project Lead the Way position, and he is sitting right behind me, and also an additional resource teacher. And so as far as that's concerned, we have a new teacher orientation every year that HR puts on, and it's a couple days of training and information, and it's very rewarding for me to be able to say at our small contingency of new teachers and staff, largely in part because we have new positions that were hired, not because of attrition or people resigning. Very few people in the state of Indiana, let alone the nation, would be able to say that they had so many new teachers because of adding spots at our building. So that's something that I really take a lot of pride in. In fact, if you want to learn more about some of our new teachers, there's a green folder there that's been distributed. Our September newsletter, I included that just for your leisure and reading pleasure, but there's some introductions for some of our new teachers and staff that can be found on the 2nd and 3rd pages there. As far as our teacher population in all, we've got 1 pre-K, 4 kindergarten, 3 first, 3 second grade, 3 third grade, 4 fourth grade, 4 fifth grade, and 1 Project Lead the Way teacher. We have 2 interventionists, and they are concentrating on reading. We also have 2 resource teachers, 3 specials teachers, and 1 master teacher. And our master teacher is Tammy Bell, and she sends her regrets. She has been in the hospital fighting an illness, so please keep her in your thoughts. Moving on to community partners. We're always excited to continue our relationship with Ball State University. Our PDS liaison, Amy Lightsey, and I'll do a little blurb about her towards the end of my presentation today, has been very instrumental in many, many ways. But we're hosting Ed Reading 430, which provides after-school reading tutoring for a lot of our students after school. We also have Practicum that comes in and works with our students during our reading blocks, by and large, for EdL 300. Math 391 is also providing some after-school math tutoring.
opportunities for our students. There's a host of observations of pre-service teachers that come through our building. And then also, the College of Communication, Information, and Media is one of our big partners as well. And I'd be remiss to say and not identify Kate Elliott as being our point of contact. She's been wonderful in enhancing that relationship, which actually led us to be able to host Mr. John Quinones to come and speak to a lot of our kids last year, and also open that up to a live stream so that more kids could take advantage of that little presentation. And if you're not familiar with Mr. Quinones, he's from ABC's What Would You Do? He's most known for that. But then also this year, we're excited to be hosting Troy Cummings. He's an author, and he is known for the Notebook of Doom series, but he'll be coming this February to come and talk with our students about being an author, being a writer, and being a learner. We're also expanding our relationship with Ivy Tech through special education practicums. That actually just started a couple of weeks ago, so we're hosting those practicum students. And then we have had the last couple of years some field trips to Ivy Tech so that our students, and this is for our fourth graders district-wide, so that our fourth graders can see what it's like to be on that type of campus, just like our fifth graders go to Ball State for a field trip so they can possibly realize themselves being on a college campus when they get to be my daughter's age next year. So that is also exciting. Continue on with our community partners, our Westview Community Association, WVCA. That is our parent-teacher organization, and they are instrumental in raising funds, volunteer corps, and also teacher appreciation. And then also Westminster Presbyterian Church, they're also instrumental in supplying volunteers, primarily for food pantry, as well as our lunch times to get some more hands on deck, as well as teacher appreciation. And Connie Goen is actually one of the more involved volunteers from Westminster Presbyterian, and she was identified and recognized as our Community Partner of the Year for last year. But very, very wonderful. Celebrating teachers and staff, our Teacher of the Year last year was also, the Muncie Community Schools Elementary Teacher of the Year. She's a dual language 3rd and 4th grade Spanish teacher. But that's Kyra right there, our rising star. Is also a dual language teacher, 2nd grade. Her name is Hannah Hyde, Senorita Hyde. Our support staff person of the year was Tracy Williams. She is our secretary, and she is in her last year as the secretary at Westview. So I don't know how I feel about that right now, but I'll tell her daily. Our Outstanding Professional Development School Supervisor Award was received by Kayla Stone last year. And then I have an acronym. I like acronyms from time to time, and you'll also see this. You'll see quite the digest to date for this year of SOGFATS, and that stands for Scenes of Greatness from Around the School. And as far as those scenes of greatness from around the school, those are things that might go otherwise unseen, unknown, undiscovered if it wasn't for either a casual conversation or some type of interaction that we would have. But if you could you click on that link for me, please? But this gives you a little bit of an idea. If you go back and click on the SOGFATS, the acronym there, the hyperlink, please. Yes. Thank you.
May take just a minute, Mr. Ambler.
It's quite all right.
So, Mr. Ambler, SOGFATS sounds like some kind of British food.
It's funny you said that because I did my best accent here.
Okay.
Thank you for the segue into that.
Welcome to Scenes of Greatness from Around the School. These scenes of greatness from around the school can be surprising a colleague with flowers to brighten an otherwise dreary day. It's also jumping in to lighten the load when a colleague has to miss school unexpectedly. It can also be sacrificing for others and sharing some shelter from the elements or life storms, and in general, being a lifesaver every day.
SOGFATS! Hey, yeah, SOGFATS, yeah!
This has been Scenes of Greatness from around the school. What have you seen?
Well, if I had the scripting there, I would have just voiced it over. But really, one of the big things as far as SOCFATS is concerned, you'll see that those scenes of greatness from around the school in your folder. That's something that I have tasked our ILT, our instructional leadership team, with as far as finding those scenes of greatness, and I've also opened it up to our staff. School culture and climate is a very big deal to me. And it's one of the reasons why I feel that we had very few new teachers and staff by comparison around the state. But I'll tell you, it's inspiring to watch our staff work. It feels different. I've been told it's all I know at Westview, but it feels different when people walk in from what they've said, and that's because of the people that. Day in and day out do amazing things with our students, do amazing things for each other. So moving on, and I've got another live link, but we'll just show it later here in just a moment. But it's not really for a bunch of show and tell, because there's a little bit more purpose and meaning to it. But as far as celebrating our students and our kiddos that we service every single day, we celebrate them monthly with Students of the Month. We have blue classroom cards, which is part of our PBIS Tier 1 intervention for students. That's when we see kids, and I know I talked about this last year as well, but it's something that's important to us. When we see kids making great choices through the halls as a class, we want to reinforce those behaviors. We also have a Tier 2 intervention, which consists of check-in and check-out. That's what that acronym CICO stands for, and also mentoring that's provided through there. We have time on task as far as supporting our students. We're in the lurch in a lot of ways academically, and so as far as accelerating learning and things of that nature, time on task. You can see this in the hall from a lot of teachers. You'll see them quizzing kids on OG components for phonics. I used to do this in my instruction all the time. And I'm not trying to take. I told Mr. Grimm. I said there's a tip of the hat to him. I don't think I'm gonna be taking any of his t-shirt business, but I've been known on occasion to wear a little math shirt here. They're a little bit more snug on me these days because of baby weight, but you'll see I've got 56 here, and I've got basic facts of 7 times 8 on the sleeves, and you'd be hard-pressed to find a 3rd or 4th grader that didn't know this basic fact just because of putting on an old decommissioned work t-shirt for 5-10 minutes in one day. And kids stop me and other people say, hey, I'm gonna make a t-shirt too. And so that's part of supporting our kids, finding those moments to either get back into more robust prerequisites, of bigger standards before they're taught, or to do that remedial piece. Testing vocabulary, you see on the bottom right-hand side there, math and ELA. We're going to have some testing vocabulary, HFW. I apologize for the acronyms tonight, but those are high-frequency words. Some of our students who are struggling readers, a lot of them have math skills, and math is so verbose when they get to high-stakes tests. If we use testing vocabulary and high-frequency testing words, they have the skills, they possess the skills to do that math, and they might need that boost as far as being able to realize what they're being asked in some of those more verbose math questions on high-stakes tests. Then also some targeted tutoring that we're going to be starting relatively soon. And another big part of supporting students, this is something that our teachers do a lot of, which is finding purpose in meeting to get our kids engaged, to make them want to be at school. And as far as that is concerned, an example of that, I have a student that wrote up this contract. It might be contrary to anyone with a law degree here in practice, but I've got a student who I'm going to rename, keep nameless here, but he was having a tough day. And so I drew up a contract for him to kind of obligate him to be at school, and it wasn't a behavior contract. It was for this student to agree to produce a video for a board meeting, and which is what you're about to see, and write invitations for 3 students who wrote letters about why Westview is such a great school to be at. He says that he understands that he needs to be in good standing with the teachers and the staff in order to do this. He signed it. I had a witness. I put my stamp on it. We hung it up in my office. And so as far as that's concerned, if you wouldn't mind clicking on that link for me, please. Hopefully the volume's all the way up. We'll see what happens this time. But this student wanted to go home. The student needed to take a break and wanted to take the break at home. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. And so as far as that's concerned, gave the student some purpose. So this student and I'll just kind of narrate here. The student actually wrote a script, and we did some voiceover, and he was talking about how Westview is the best place to be. Gave tons of different reasons, and that kind of segued into a narrative that another student wrote, which was also recorded, but obviously the audio is not working. But the nice thing is, too, I mentioned our dual language program. Not only did this student who was having a rough time, not only did they do that script and read it and do the voiceover to this video that he and I actually sat in my office and produced, he did that in English, but then he also went back and I said, well, do it in Spanish now. And he wrote the scripting in Spanish. He did everything in Spanish. I'll send you all the links. But at any rate, the reason behind this wasn't for you to hear from a student how great Westview is. The reason for this was because of all of the meaning and the purpose that we all find as educators in order to get our kids engaged and move them forward. So we'll get back here to our next slide. Thank you. Sure. Thank you very much. I'm going to turn things over to Mr. Hendershot. He is our project Lead the Way teacher, and that is servicing students in grades 1st through 5th. He's got some things to share with you.
Thank you, Mr. Ambler. Thank you for having me. Former high school science teacher turned project, lead the way here, elementary school. So this has been a big change for me, but one that I've wouldn't have any other way. I love what I'm doing, and I'm thankful for the chance to be able to do this. We have now been able to get through each grade level, has had the opportunity to finish one module. Modules take about 3 weeks to complete. We started in, let's just go here with 1st grade. I think if I advance, let's see what if I get. Yeah, I've got some pictures here. All right, so in 1st grade, it was the main concepts, the concepts were light and sound. They learned about how light and sound are both energy, how they travel in waves. 1st graders learning big words like translucent and opaque and transparent, and knowing the difference between certain materials and how the light passes through it. Honestly, I thought there's no way these kids are going to be able to get to be able to do this, and I was surprised. In the end, they created these devices, and they had to signal me from the front door of the school. And if you've been to Westview recently, I'm out in the modular building on our campus, as we call it now. I'm in the other building, but they had to signal me with using either light and sound. And then we went to the 2nd grade. 2nd grade was learning about matter, different properties of matter. In the end, they had to create a cooler of sorts with everyday household things, right? The cooler got left, the way the story goes, the cooler got left in the car and the car is gone, but now the kids are taking ice pops to the soccer game and it's hot outside. So now they got to keep the ice pops cold. So the kids had to create these coolers. They had to learn about insulators and conductors and how different materials are with matter. So they had a lot of fun with that. And that's some of their coolers that you can see there. In third grade, we learned about flight and the science of flight. Learned about the forces such as thrust, drag, weight, and lift, how those impact our world in general. They learned about balanced and unbalanced forces. So in order for the gliders to take off and for the gliders to land and how those forces work. And then they actually designed their own gliders. So there were some gliders that I gave them the pieces and they created them, and they worked with weight and how to balance these gliders. And then they were able to modify them. And the scenario here was that we had an area that was impacted with natural disasters, and then they had to fly in some water or whatever it was, and that was represented by these little binder clips that we put on there, and they had to get to a certain distance. And again, I mean, just great. The kids loved it. I did have a video. We decided not to use it because I don't think it worked, but I had this video where we did this all in slow motion, and the kids launched their glider. And it makes it to the point, and all of the kids in slow motion are arms up in the air and cheering, and it's a lot of nice. It was a nice video. Here we go into fourth grade, and they're learning about energy, mostly about potential and kinetic energy and what happens in a collision. And I think if you click that link, you can actually, or click that photo, you should be able to see kind of what their end result was. And that's not going to work, correct? Not gonna, okay, that's all right. Let's just go back. So they had to design using our VEX kits. They had to design this car, and then the car had to have a restraint system to protect an egg. All right, so we put the egg in there, but they had to design this. So we went through all this different stuff with collisions, impacts, and from varying heights, and it went on and on. The kids, again, loved it. But they, in the end, the VEX IQ kits, and the fourth graders are coming through again right now, and we're using those same kits again. And we're still talking about energy, but now we're talking about completely different stuff, but we're building on the concepts that we had just finished. And then finally, in fifth grade, infection was the big thing. And we were able to, there was a lot of stuff that we did with this, but they learned how infection spreads from person to person, learned the difference between viruses and bacteria. They learned about the things in our body. This was actually not part, I added this, but this little poster presentation, they had to learn about the body's different ways that we kind of keep infection away from us. And that was just one of the things we did. In the end, they had to actually trace this infection through the school. And they had kind of like contact tracing. There was not one mention of COVID or anything in this, but all the kids knew all about this. They're like, oh, I've been in this situation before. So it actually hit home for a lot of them. And like I said, we're now on our second rotation. We're seeing fourth and fifth graders again right now. And the kids love it. Every time I see a kid in the hall, they're like, when's the next time I get to come out to Project Lead the Way? And I'm like, yeah, it's soon enough, but that's always the first thing they say to me. So thank you for this opportunity to do this. I think it's a great program, and kids love it. So is there any questions or anything?
Any questions?
No, I'm just amazed. I went to college for 4 years to learn all this as an engineer. I could have gone back to elementary school and learned quicker.
For sure.
So this is good stuff.
Yeah.
It's really cool.
It is.
Yeah.
Yep. Agreed.
Well, you're just doing a fabulous job, and we're just grateful for you. So keep hanging in there. I know that we were very fortunate because you have a secondary degree in science.
Yes.
So great training with science, but you're in elementary, and the good old Department of Education helped us find different ways that we're able to make you not have to jump through lots of hoops. So that's also great news,
And
isn't it?
thank you so much for that.
Well,
My wife thanks you as well.
Yes, thank you so much for the work you're doing with the kids. I'm just curious, as you're going through these various modules, so for instance, force and collisions.
Yeah.
Do you ever mention the word physics?
No. I haven't at all.
So that, that's interesting to me because, you find things that kids develop an interest in, but you don't. Physics is one of those words for me that induced a level of some anxiety.
For sure. Sometimes I do say to the kids, well, when I was your age, or when I didn't learn this until I was in high school.
Right.
And here I am teaching this to you right now. Or I taught this when I taught high school to 10th, 11th graders. And now I'm here teaching it to 5th graders. So, there's that, but I don't drop the big word. I try to keep everything on their level, try not to scare anyone.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
So any additional questions? Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.
I will have to say that Mr. Hendershot has, he's endured a lot of schedule changes and variables and things of that nature, and he has rolled with every single punch, and he's been absolutely bend over backwards, wonderful, accommodating to work to get this initiative that's been district-wide for a couple of years now, really off the ground and a lot more meaningful, and so it's been awesome. He's been a great addition. So I had mentioned our master teacher, Tammy Bell. She's actually, she was actually hospitalized over this weekend. And before I get into her part of the presentation, I wanted to share something. This is a SOG FAT that just kind of developed and came to a conclusion, kind of, sort of. But we're surrounded by amazing teachers at Westview. And Tammy Bell, being the master teacher that she is, while she was in the hospital, she texted me this week, or she called me from the hospital this weekend, telling me she was in the hospital. And she texted me the next day, still in the hospital. Sent you my notes for the board meeting. Thanks. How you feeling? Very weak, but I think the antibiotic is working. I may get to come home tomorrow. And I say, all the more reason to stop doing school stuff. Okie dokie, she says. Don't come back until you're healthy. My family is telling me the same thing. Thumbs up. She texted me again, just earlier today. Home from the hospital. Plan to be back on Friday unless something changes. Welcome home. Get some rest, and we'll see you when you get back. Okie dokie. So even though her mind, her family's mind is on her health, Tammy Bell's mind is still on school and what needs to get done. There aren't enough hours in the day, as all of us know, in whatever capacity we serve when we're serving our students and their families. But Tammy Bell epitomizes that. So I'd be remiss if I did not mention that this evening. So I hope I do her slides justice and get her notes, because if she's probably watching this right now, I would imagine, probably taking notes, making sure that I'm saying things word for word that she had prepared. So without further ado, as far as our school data is concerned, in June, we analyzed our data from iLearn, from iRead, and then our iReady formative assessment, which we take beginning, middle, and end of the year, as well as F&P benchmarking. Then we wrote our school goals. And so as far as that's concerned, we're really concentrated on priority standards that are set forth by the IDOE, and that's by and large grades 3rd through 5, because they are our testing grades. Close reading and justification for all grades of articles, math manipulatives, and then also making sure that we have writing calendars and benchmark assessments, and that we have plenty of modeling that is associated in line and in step with that.
Bless you.
As far as that's kind of moving on here, as far as what was working with our instruction, a lot of the things that we looked at were areas of needs to focus our instruction. They included adding rigor to our reading instruction by providing explicit instruction for close reading and answering questions, and that were text dependent. And the justifications that go along with that, particularly from articles, unpacking state standards and the curriculum maps for cohesiveness, and adding missing elements and spiraling the priority standards that I just previously mentioned for K through 5. Also, writing in response to all reading, writing essays about articles, spelling and reading high-frequency words, math adding and manipulatives, math word problems in real world scenarios. And we're going to be preparing to look at our growth of our students here in the very near future, which is actually at the end of this month of November. Some other things that we are doing, as you can see here on the slide here, I'm having trouble reading it from here. But unpacking those standards, like I was saying, the close reading strategies and articles. Another thing is our increase of instruction of high frequency words K through 5. You'll see within the next week or so that we'll have a high frequency testing word wall or academic word wall that'll be in our main hallway.
Tell me what that means.
So high frequency words, so the words, the academic words that pop up often on either local assessments, statewide assessments. It could be sum, addend, quotient for math. We could be talking about summarizing, just those high frequency words that we see over and over again when students are being posed questions on those high stakes tests. So there is academic vocabulary, and as far as that's concerned, one of the things that we look at as far as curriculum is how well the curriculum and the vocabulary associated within that curriculum relates to all of the academic vocabulary that the IDOE puts out on their blueprints. And so as far as being aligned, we want to make sure that our students are conversant in those high frequency academic words so that we're all using the same language. A bit more of an explanation too. Math has been something that is near and dear to me when I was in the classroom as far as instruction, when I was teaching, not so much when I was getting it firsthand when I was in elementary. So an example that I can give you, there are three different words that you can say when you are showing your fractions, your answer in lowest terms. And so when I taught it, because there was a disparage, and this is as recent as 7 years ago, I'm removed from the classroom. I would have a math chant for my students. I'm not going to do a math rap tonight. I've done that in years past. But when we get to the final answer in a math problem, I would have to teach my kids, can I simplify lowest terms reduce? And so you really muddy the waters if you're not using common academic vocabulary, those high frequency academic vocabulary words. So I would have to teach lowest terms, depend upon the curriculum, simplify and reduce. They all mean to do the same thing. And so it takes a lot of that guesswork out. And I'd mentioned previously about high frequency academic vocabulary and giving our kids that might be struggling readers, they might have the skills, they might know how to simplify, reduce, or show things in lowest terms. But if they can't read those words effectively, they may not know what they're being asked, even though they have that skill.
Okay, so this, and this may be other folks are aware of this, but you use three different descriptors for one act.
One skill.
One skill.
Mm-hmm.
And I assume that that's done purposely, that somehow on
Sure.
tests we're going to see a variety of those.
Yes, and another thing is how that articulates throughout the grade levels. So for example, I'm doing observations for all my classroom teachers with math, particularly since we have a new math curriculum, and I'm trying to see how our instruction is, how consistent we're being cross grade level, because if you teach sum and addend or answer or a wealth of other types of academic vocabulary words, if it's being taught different in primary grades by comparison to intermediate grades, that could be a source of confusion for students. An example, I'll stick with math because that's what I really enjoyed teaching. We've got columns and place values, and if it's not called like a place value column, or if it's not called the same thing throughout the grade levels as it's going to appear on a high stakes test, we just want that consistency cross grade level. it's so much easier for our students. They know exactly what they're being asked and what's expected of them when they take those high stakes tests.
So how many skills within, say, math or science are we using a variety of descriptors on standardized testing? I mean, you may not know the answer to that, but I'm assuming it's more than just what you've just described.
There's several. However, the IDOE takes a lot of that guesswork out of it because they have their essential vocabulary that's aligned in the blueprints that they share that's available to all educators in the state so that we're all literally all on the same page.
So this is outside of anybody's pay grade in this room. But I'm struggling, and Brittany, help me out. Why are we using several different descriptors for one skill, one mathematical skill? I mean, that strikes me as nonsense.
And we're not necessarily, but what I'm saying is, as far as consistency is
I understand
concerned,
I understand what you're driving at, and I'm not at all being critical there. What I'm saying is simplify, reduce, reach your lowest common. Give me the third one.
Lowest term.
Lowest common what?
Lowest term.
Lowest term. I mean, I know how to do that. But if I can imagine that. What grade are you doing now? Third grade, I suppose?
Fourth grade.
Fourth grade
is when that starts, that skill,
and
around fourth grade.
So we're already dealing with fractions, which creates anxiety for kids, including me. And we have 3 or 4 different descriptors to exercise one act. And
Like traditionally there
I don't want to absorb a ton of time as I'm doing here, but that seems to me to be problematic.
They're not wrong, but the idea is just to teach all the vocabulary that they're going to come across.
I understand. I get it. I'm just wondering why the state on the test can't settle on one commonly accepted term.
Yeah, I would say traditionally it's been taught different ways.
I would say the state has given us blueprints and words to use, but I would say often teachers may use different words.
Exactly.
So what Eric's trying to do is make sure that all of his teachers are using consistent language so that students are learning in a consistent way.
Correct.
So they're familiar with the academic language that they associate not only on high stakes tests, but anytime they're coming across different math problems and they're asked to do something, you want to make sure they're equipped to be able to respond to that question.
Absolutely.
So you're trying to induce within your faculty and with your teachers.
Correct.
What I'm driving at, which is a common descriptor.
Yes.
Okay.
And the state has those common descriptors in those blueprints.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And so our Westview and Ball State partnership has been driven by our PDS liaison, Amy Lightsey. And I alluded to this earlier in my presentation, but our partnership with Ball State has been amazing. And Tammy says, I don't know about other buildings, and I don't know either, but we are extremely blessed at Westview to have a liaison like Amy Lightsey. She brings so many opportunities to our Westview students that make a difference in reading and math, and we love celebrating with her. We all make a great team, and we focus on the literacy needs of Westview. And she doesn't say, do this. She says, how can I help you? And I think that's kind of the crux of what a true partnership is. She's able to see firsthand our data, instructional strengths and weaknesses, which I think in turn helps her as she guides and instructs our future teacher candidates. So Amy Lightsey is, I've had the pleasure of being able to work with her since I was a principal at Storr. And our relationship with Ball State since then has only gotten stronger. Her professionalism is second to none, and we're extremely fortunate to have her as a partner as we continue on with our journey in helping and servicing our kids. As I said before, we are growing, and Mr. Hendershot cut to the chase there. He beat me to it, but we're a campus now, and so we have a 4-unit modular which houses 2 second-grade classrooms, 5th-grade dual language, and then also our Project Lead the Way classroom. And so one of the things, because we're growing, I'm trying to keep our school community, our teachers and staff as up to date as possible with some of the goings-on. And Brad could probably tell you better than I as far as what some of those next steps are. But towards the end of this month, we're going to have a lot of bid walkthroughs through the main building as we continue to grow and embark upon a major capital project where we're going to be adding on to the east and the west wings, respectively, of the existing school wings, and we're building to the south. And then also the office area, nurses clinic, is also going to see some extension and some additions there. But we're very thankful to be able to have a modular unit. We've been at capacity the last 4 years, as I've shared, the last 4 years. I recall Ms. Mark Griffith pointing that out last time I was able to present. But yeah, it's an awesome challenge to have. There have been hiccups, but you know, we'll drink some water and we'll get over those. But I'll tell you, because we're growing, we've had some shifting around within the main building proper. And anytime I have asked any of those teachers what their thoughts were about potentially moving somewhere, and it's a big ask of any teacher, particularly if you have as much stuff as I had as a teacher, and being asked to move it, whether it be next door or across campus now to the modular. But they have been absolutely remarkable and wonderful and understanding and always having a, you know, let's put kids first mentality. But that QR code there, that is a construction blog that Schmidt and Associates, the blog is run by them, but that's something that I share out on my newsletters. You'll also see that most recently on another example that I shared in that green folder with some other links to content, but that's just to keep everyone abreast of what's going on as far as those construction initiatives. They've not updated it since late July, so I'm going to be sending an email to say, hey, how about some updates? That would be awesome. I'd appreciate it. So would our school community. Other than that, these are two of my favorite pictures. The sun rising, which we're seeing again during arrival due to falling back. And then I'm trying not to see this very often, but the moon dotting the I as I'm leaving the building at night. But thank you all very much. Thanks for rolling with the punches with the audio not being where it should be, or the links not working as anticipated. I am more than happy to send you all of those things. And if you were to hear the enunciation and the inflection and the accent of the young man who did the voiceover, not only for his meaning and purpose in English but Spanish, it's incredible. I have native speakers that have been substitutes at our building that are floored with the dialect that's coming from our dual language students. But I'll send that out because I really would like for you to see it and hear it. But other than that, open for any questions or comments that board might have.
Any questions for Mr.
I
Ambler?
got a quick question about your pre-K. Your number 19 students seems low compared to the other classes. Is that because of capacity or teachers or?
It's ratios. We actually have 20 now. We just got a new kiddo yesterday. And so in order to stay within their ratios, to keep our leveled statuses, which we're a level 3, I believe, through paths to quality, that's because we have one aide and one lead teacher.
So 20 is the max in our pre-K classroom. The other schools had 2 classrooms, and that's why some of the other schools have.
But we're not turning students away, are we?
We have a wait list for some students, yes.
Okay.
One of the goals of the CAN program is to expand that.
So which
Community cradle to career
okay.
that George and Francis is.
So we hope to make opportunities available for more
Especially
students.
through our school improvement grant with the Grissom, Southview, and Longfellow. We have that $8.1 million, and expanding pre-K is a priority.
Such an important.
Absolutely.
And with the expansion, we're talking if Eric gets extra classrooms with that new wing, we're hoping to be able to offer 2 pre-K classrooms in his building.
And that would be amazing. on a couple different levels. First of all, just to be able to service those kids before, just to give them a running start, not a head start necessarily, but a running start. But also try to get kind of a magnet pull for dual language and maybe get a bilingual, biliterate preschool teacher before those students find themselves in dual language kindergarten to really be impactful. But then also, I talked about us being a one-way dual language program with less than 50% of our students being native speakers, but really be able to capitalize on something like that to get more native speakers before they even join the ranks in kindergarten and see that progress throughout the years.
Thank you.
Sure.
I always want to publicly say, whenever I go to Westview, Eric is just a solid leader. He does a remarkable job.
Thank you.
And he knows his students. He has good relationships with his families. And when you want to find a principal who's student-centered, you just have to look Eric's way. So I always really appreciate what he does at Westview.
Any additional questions from Mr. Ambler?
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate it. Absolutely.
Yeah,
100%.
please
And it
forward.
worked earlier, so we have no idea what went wrong.
Live, I don't know what happened.
So sorry about
I
that,
probably
Eric.
hit the mute button trying to make the clicker work, so
So-
that's on me.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mr. Ambler, please text Ms. Spell and let her know that we're thinking about her and that the board is, her slides were well done and you did them justice.
Coming from you, she'll believe it.
Okay, and say, and echo what you've said earlier, that be well, and don't rush back. Okay, thank you. So we are on to the civics grant.
Okay, I want to thank you all for having me here today and for this opportunity to talk about the project. Our project is CREATE. That's our abbreviation. It's the Civic Renewal through Education Agency Tolerance and Engagement. The general overview is it's at this point a $1.5 million 3-year grant, and we do hope to continue it for 5 years. Well, an additional 2 years, so a total of 5 years, and that would come with additional funding. So we began with the question, what makes a good citizen? That's kind of how we created it. The project is aligned with the Every Student Succeeds Act, so it is aligned with the federal policy. We consider this a collaboration between Ball State and Muncie Community Schools. Even our evaluation in this initial phase, we've been working with teachers. We've had a lot of support from local teachers and even developing our evaluation tools. So every part of the project we want to be in collaboration with Muncie Community Schools. And I think we're very aware that it will not be a successful project if we don't engage teachers and we don't have teachers supportive of the project. We do want to work in particular with specific areas like social studies and history and geography, but we do want this to be a project that engages all teachers. We feel that all teachers are involved in citizenship and what it means to be a good citizen. Some examples that I've given recently, the Indiana Bar Foundation shared with us, they recently did an event with music teachers where they talked about the impact of music on the civil rights movement. In one of our early meetings with teachers, we had the PE teacher say that it was after a wrestling tournament that they met the mayor and kids wanted to know, what does a mayor do, and began asking questions. And I think we've even been talking recently about how even with science, it's pretty clear that science and medicine today is impacted by our politics and other factors in society. So we want to engage all teachers through the K-12 level. We are focused on civic knowledge, civic skills, how to talk across differences, how to engage in dialogue, and then ultimately what we hope to develop is civic agency, a sense among students that they have a feeling they can have an impact on their society and feel compelled to vote and engage and solve problems. We have a project team that represents experts at Ball State. Dean Mari is on our project and part of our project leadership. We selected a number of other individuals who are engaged with Muncie Community Schools, Dr. Cassidy. I know Kate Elliott was mentioned earlier, and she's a part of our project as well. And media literacy is one aspect of our project. We also have 2 national level experts, Dr. Peter Levine and Dr. Trygve Thonefeit. I struggle with his last name all the time, but we know him as Trig. But they are 2 national level experts at, Trig was at Harvard, now at the Minnesota Humanities Center. Peter Levine is at Tufts, and they are helping advise and kind of guide our project. The main components, what we hope to work on throughout the duration of the project is, we call it a civic learning repository, but really what we want to do is set up a large number of resources for teachers to utilize, whether that's primary sources or textbooks, curriculum, materials that are available for teachers. And we've talked to teachers, we've done some surveys and found they would like to have some more information on local history and Indiana history and some of those things. Professional development opportunities, and these are paid professional development opportunities to support teachers. A civic learning academy, which will be a summer, like a 10-day summer event where we host teachers at Ball State, and we're able to work with teachers to develop projects, and then they will also have time to work with students. We're looking at things like maybe a better understanding of local government, addressing problems in the community. We have allocated money for activities and field trips. So we're hoping to incentivize teachers to do civic-related activities and trips, and we think teachers are very excited about this now that the pandemic's, I guess, can we say ending, but yeah, at least moving to a new phase where teachers can go out and do things. We've already had an application. We have a teacher who's interested in taking students to the state legislature in December. And then we're having a symposium once a year where we want to highlight the accomplishments of teachers and put some of their work on display. So we have a number of goals for the project, but we really want to equip teachers with a better understanding of civics engagement and how to teach hands-on civic-related activities and to provide resources for teachers. And then I wanted to mention a little bit about We the People. This is a curriculum that we are able to provide through the project. We the People was, that is the curriculum that was utilized or sort of the new civics mandate for middle schools was designed with We the People in mind. It's also been approved by the Department of Education. And so the new civic standards for the education, for the middle school class is aligned with We the People. And we did bring copies of the textbook to share if the board would be interested in seeing those later. Dean Mari has taught social studies using We the People previously. It's a national level program. It's supported in Indiana by the Indiana Bar Foundation. They hold not only provide the curriculum, but they also hold events. A few weeks ago, I was in Fort Wayne and judged a civics competition based on We the People. So a lot of opportunities. Research has shown that it increases civic learning and civic engagement among youth. And I wanted to mention that this research was done among Title I schools and did show improvement among those students in Title I schools. So that's all I have, and I did want to thank Mr. Grimm and Julie Snyder and Dr. Reynolds and others here who've really been willing to meet with us and work with us and support the project in the initial phase.
So, Dr. Roof,
Yeah.
I want to thank you for being tenacious about this grant from the university. And it's, near and dear to my heart. When I was judge, I worked with We the People at our local school. I believe in that curriculum.
Yeah.
Is there anything you need from the board to help you with implementation, with advancement of the process, anything at all?
That's a good question and something I might need to reflect on.
Okay.
In time.
Well, if you do, please let us know.
Yes.
Dean, anything you need? Julie, anything? Exciting stuff, I think. So there's, without, again, belaboring it, there's a book that just came out within the last month, and the name of the author escapes me, but he works with Skip Gates at Harvard, and he spends a lot of time talking about the history of civics and history textbooks in the country, which I'm smiling because I'm not going to go into detail, but those of you who are interested, check it out, because it's been a tortured history in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
So I'm very proud of this and the work you're doing. So
Thank you. Thanks.
Any additional questions?
Absolutely. Yeah, and I did want to, before I conclude, I did want to mention that we're kind of considering this fall semester as a implementation phase where we are planning and gathering data and collecting baseline data, but we do want to do an official kind of launch event on January 19th, and so I will send a formal invite to everybody here.
Please do.
We had reached out to the governor, who's unfortunately unavailable that day, but we are looking to invite a speaker and some guests, and we would like for everyone here to be at that event.
Well, I would make a suggestion, and I don't know what his schedule looks like, but Robert Wilkins is judge on the DC Circuit Court of Appeals.
Okay.
Is the court thought to be the court right below the United States Supreme Court. Judge Wilkins is a Muncie North Side graduate. His family's still here, so if you extend an invitation to him, and I'd be happy to assist in that. I don't, again, busy guy, don't know what his schedule is, but he would be somebody who I would think would be willing to participate if we could match his schedule.
Thank you.
Okay. Any additional questions? Thank you so much.
Yeah.
We are on to Reading Future for Every Child. How are you today?
Great. Dave Stevenson, Mr. Chairman, Dr. K, members of the board. I'm happy to be here. How's my sound? Good?
You're good.
I am the founder of an organization called Reading Futures. We are providing direct small group virtual intervention services for 60 of your most struggling readers in Southview, Longfellow, and Grissom. And I should say it's a real honor to be in front of you. It's truly an honor to be in partnership with your schools and to be in direct service to those kids. When I started talking with Dr. K this summer, I've worked on early grades literacy in Indiana one way or another since the late 2000s. Did assessment, did high quality curriculum. I started talking to her and she said, Dave, she said, I have 3 schools that I'm up at night losing sleep about how those kids are doing with reading. And if nothing else, I'm up at night losing sleep about those same kids on your behalf. And so it's been a real pleasure and also quite a lot of work. I'm going to tell you the kids we worry about, and then I'll tell you a little bit more about the work we're doing. We're focused on struggling readers. Think about kids sort of through the 2nd through the 15th percentile. In Indiana, you talk about characteristics of dyslexia in your sort of screening law. These are kids who really struggle with word reading. That's the primary sort of diagnosis, and it cascades into fluency, cascades into comprehension. These are also kids who really suffer. You know, once you're a year, 2 years, 3 years behind in a classroom surrounded by a whole bunch of kids who are getting access to print and enjoying it, you feel yourself falling farther behind, and that shows up in self-esteem and ultimately in a whole bunch of behavior challenges. And so the more we can catch them early and help them succeed, the better they'll do elsewhere. And then the last thing, just to say scientifically, it is heritable. And so about 50% of sort of struggling reading or dyslexia is heritable. It does run in families. It's also something that's disconnected with most other cognitive skills or abilities. And so if you have kids who are struggling reading, they still could be very good with math. They still could be very good spatially. They still could be very good with people. And so sometimes gets compensated and it's sort of, harder to notice. And the last thing is we can figure it out pretty early. And you've got a good screening regime in place to really find kids and see who's challenged. We believe and we have found, and I shouldn't just say we believe, we are following the science. Jason Yateman from Stanford University, he runs their brain and education lab, is our scientific advisor and has been sort of a wayfinder through the science in this population. There's three things to understand about the type of instruction that matters for these kids, for these struggling readers. First of all, it needs to be multi-component. You really need to activate sound work, right? So phonological awareness, you need to activate letter sound correspondence, phonics, but you also need to connect to meaning. And this is where I think a lot of programming sort of falls apart. You really need to be activating what Marianne Wolf calls the whole circuit of reading, right? The whole making meaning. Print has meaning, words have meaning, we're reading for meaning, and you want kids doing that as much as you possibly can. The second thing is, especially for struggling readers, they encounter words that feel unfamiliar to them over and over and over again. And so you want to give them a set of strategies to access those words. On the top, you've got an example of Orton-Gillingham, which is widely used in the state, and we're using some of that sort of method. And at the bottom, you've got a method from Dr. Maureen Lovett and her team that's more like a lightweight morphology, where you're helping kids use strategies and different words to figure out other words. And then the last thing, in a world of high dosage tutoring, these kids need extreme dosage intervention. On the right, you've got a study from Dr. Yateman working on looking at the Linda Mood Bell program, which is a sort of one-to-one center-based program. He found essentially you don't get a real bump at the start and you don't get a real taper at the end. Every 40 hours counts. And so if you've got kids who are a year, 2 years, 3 years behind, they need a lot of time on task in order to be successful. We're doing this work with a couple of great partners. We're going to show you what it looks like in a second, but just to say, we're using the Hill Wrap program from the Hill Center in Durham, North Carolina. That's a private school for learning disabled, or children with learning differences, I should say, including dyslexia. They've been working for 30 years with this population and developed some tools and techniques. And on the right, that's Dr. Marianne Wolf. If you're not familiar with her, she's the author of Proust and the Squid. She's the author of Reader Come Home. She's a deep thinker and a well-respected researcher on interventions for this population. And she's the author of the RAVO program, which is one of the pieces of programming we're using. It's small group virtual. And so before I say anything else, I just want to show you what it looks like. This is what the kid experience is. And I was actually in today looking at, watching a couple of classrooms in action. And you've got one of our teachers on the left, and then the child's got sort of a word list activity. In this case, they're doing CVC-A words on the right, and the teacher's able to see and sort of monitor and progress them through. But are we able to actually play the video
We hope so.
that you've got there? We'll see. And if it doesn't get the sound, I can give you a talk track on it anyway. It's about 3 minutes. And these are your students. We've blurred the names, but these are your kids. Oops. Or maybe we don't have it. We got the wrong one now.
No, that one didn't work, so let's hope this next one will.
Are you looking for the file? It's in that RF video. Yeah, there you go. Yep. Here you go.
Really good thinking. Great.
All right, so you can't quite hear the sound, so I'm going to give you a quick talk track. This is our teacher working with 3 kids. In this case, they're working on CVCA words, and so she's got them doing the work using Alconen boxes to blend the sounds together. Say it the slow way, say it the fast way, pat, and you're going to see the kids are getting pretty into it, right? They're sort of figuring out how to make sense of that word. And now she's got an activity where they're trying different words. You're going to see the kid on the bottom left is going to get cat, and you're going to see him. She's going to say, kiss your brain, and he's going to actually kiss his brain right there on the camera. And then the second one, let's let him get cat.
Hey, don't shout out. Wait till you hear.
She's still working on him. I'll give you the whole talk track. So she's going to help him get cat, and he's going to figure it out. Then she's going to show the word fat. One of the things you're noticing is she's giving all the kids time to look and read for a minute before she then activates them, so every kid gets the rep. One of the kids on the top says fish. right? What's that word? Oh, it's fish, because they recognize that F. They see the first letter, and they don't, the keyword for F is fish, and say, oh, it's fish. And then she pauses and she says, remember, when we found a word we don't know, we figure out the individual sounds, and we blend them together, and we take the time. And they do take that time, and they do read fat, right? And so this is like, if you think about what it means to be a struggling reader who doesn't have CVCA words yet, that's it. You see that word and you say, oh, fish, right? I see the F, it must be fish. The second set, these are kids, and you're not going to see quite the, you're not going to see what the kids are looking at, but essentially each of these kids has an individual word list. And so the girl on the top left is a little bit further behind than the other children in that group. And she's reading CVCA words again. And the third one, she reverses. It's map, and she says Pam, and she sort of spends some time turning it around and getting it right. And I would encourage you to watch the video, because this one, you can see Miss Amanda is so thrilled for the progress she's making, and you can just see it on her face. That girl feels the progress she's making. She's been sort of behind on reading and now is catching up. And then the other kids have different word lists. So some of them have digraphs, some of them have other sort of more complex words in the word list they're working through, but they're all getting the right level of instruction, even in the small group environment. So you can go ahead and pause the video there. Just, there's more, there's reading, but I feel like it really comes alive listening to the kids, and so I'd love to just send it to you, and you can have a chance to listen. Am I clicking again?
You should be.
Let's see, and you might want to put it back. Well, I can do it this way. You can put it back in presentation mode if you want. The other thing, just to say, the RAVO program, we're going to work with a lot of fluency on different grain sizes, and also, again, really connecting to meaning. Two more things about us, and then we're going to talk about you. These are a bunch of my teachers. These are certified teachers. These are teachers who have been through 50+ hours of training in our programming and our content, but these are also teachers who have taught. Some of them have taught Wilson, some of them have taught Orton Gillingham, some of them have been reading coaches themselves. For one reason or another, many of them are military spouses. They're in situations where they're not able to be in the classroom or in the school, and this is a way for them to do this work and connect with kids in a way that they find truly rewarding, and I find really rewarding to make possible. So we really enjoy them, and you should know they truly love your kids. Like, we're doing daily and weekly debriefs, and the quality of the relationships and the quality of care and attention that they're putting in, like, it shines through in everything you see. This is in your deck, so you can see it. Just to show, we did a summer pilot where we showed growth that sort of was at the same level of some of the sort of normal programs. But let me tell you, in Muncie, and before I tell you anything else about Muncie, I want to tell you about Heidi White. I have worked with a lot of education administrators and education leaders over the years, and it has been such a pleasure and such a powerful connection and collaboration to work with Heidi. We're out there in the schools. We have our kids on devices. You've got instructional assistants overseeing and monitoring them. You've got principals sort of attending to the work that we're doing. And Heidi is in the thick of it, worrying about how those kids are doing, worrying about how our teachers are doing, and has been such a strong leader and such a great partner. So I really, I can't say enough good things about both the work and also just the depth of care that she has for your kids. And it's something that we really grab onto and believe in. So we're in Grissom, Longfellow, and Southview. I can't quite see the percentiles, but it looks like it's sort of 9th through 12th or 13th percentile is the average. So it is those kids in that sort of bottom range. 20 kids per school, grades 1 and 2, groups of 4. And we're 7 weeks in. And I want to show you just a couple things so that you can have a sense of how to connect with the work and pay attention to it. The first is we're doing that work as part of a community care around those children. And so we're providing, you're going to see in the packet, we're actually providing weekly reports that go to both the classroom teachers and to the parents so they can understand how their kids are doing and literally call out, for example, if you have children who are struggling on 3 or 4 letters, our teachers will highlight that and say, hey, if you get 5 or 10 minutes, work on the letters, C, J, and G, and just do some time sort of drawing and writing and working with them. So we're trying to build connections around the success of those kids. And on the bottom right, you're going to see that's where we're doing every 6 weeks. Each child has an individual reading plan, and we're paying attention to their progress through the sort of progression of literacy development. And those are the examples of the reports. They're in your deck. And I can show you how it's going. So we're 7 weeks in now. Again, this is in your deck, so you can look at it more closely. This is all 60 kids. And what it is each orange box is a skill area and sort of a focal skill area. So the second one in is the children can name all the consonant sounds, right? Further to the right is the child can read all CVCA words, or can read CVCA words at proficiency, can read CVCI words at proficiency, can write them. And you'll see across all the kids, we've made a lot of progress, both in terms of the number of children who have mastered that skill, meaning done it repeatedly at an 80% plus proficiency rate, and even more, the number of children who are in progress on those skills, right? So this is how we're able to see the progress. We're only 6 weeks in. We have a long ways to go. To highlight, this is your first graders, and just to say, like, we had a lot of first graders who were missing letters and letter sounds, and we're missing, in some cases, I'm teaching 1 day a week with one of your classes in Southview, and clapping the words in a sentence, right? That was a starting point, right? What can you tell me a word? Tell me these 2 words, do they rhyme or not, right? That's sort of the level of starting point. So we're making a lot of progress. In first grade, we've got a long ways to go. And even in second grade, while the progress feels like a lot more, we've got 3 levels. The first level at the end is reading CVC words, sort of accurately and correctly. We have 2 more, and that's sort of essentially the end of kindergarten. Then we've got a first grade level, then we've got a second grade level. We've got a lot of catching up to do, but we're here for it. I think that's it. Reading Future for Every Child. That's what we're here to do. We are so thrilled to have the opportunity to serve you and to work with you, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much for your presentation. Tell me, is all year long?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, all year long. Yep. And
Four
we're doing.
days a week, 55 minutes every day.
That's correct.
So if possible, could we receive, if not more, certainly a report in maybe April or May?
Absolutely.
On what has happened in terms of growth and where we are.
Yep.
This is, you and I met this summer, and
Yep. I was
Speaker
out here.
Houston.
Yep.
So thank you to Speaker Houston.
Yep.
Indiana House Representatives who pointed out to us this opportunity. So I would love to see something in the spring as to what kind of growth we've seen, what our challenges are, what we may need to do going into next year.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know we're looking at your screening data, and then we're also keeping track in the program both. And so, we're really, I started my career in educational assessment and the Dibbles assessment. We're measuring as much as we can, and we really care about our results. So thank you.
Any additional questions? Heidi, thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. So see if we stay long enough, it starts to, we start losing people. Dr. K.
6:30, and it's time for my update. Are you guys ready for that? Do you know we had a lot of good presentations that we wanted to make sure we got in front of you? And I know Dave comes from DC and comes regularly to check in. And so while he was here today, we thought it would be great if he could get in front of you. If you notice behind us, this great backdrop that we have, I want to give a thanks to the Ball Brother Foundation. They provided through one of their grants for us to be able to do some marketing and get some products in. So we appreciate that partnership. I also wanted to mention tonight is the National Honor Society inductees. So if we get some empty seats in a few minutes, I know Chuck has a son and Dia has a son who are going to become part of the National Honor Society, and we don't want you to miss being there for that. And then Rhonda, who's in our audience, she has done a remarkable job. We wanted to make sure that any of our students of color who were eligible, that they would be part of the National Honor Society. And I just have to give a shout out for Rhonda for going over and above to make sure she did personal phone calls to families and let them know about the opportunity and just the importance of how that helps on applications and just the good experience. So thank you, Rhonda, for all of that. So I know you'll be slipping out as well. A few things I wanted to mention. We're going to start multi-factor authentication. So many of you do that if you sign into like your bank account and you have to go through a process where you get a code. Well, our insurance company is saying, you know, for a school district, we have to go through that also. So Steve Spradlin has a plan that we'll be rolling out. It's really anybody that has a Muncie Community Schools email address, so that will even be with board members that you'll be part of that process also. I wanted to share that Jenny Smithson and Jess Paul, who's Jenny's our Director of Special Ed, and Jess is our BCBA. They were part of a national publication with 2 professors from Ball State University in the National Association for Professional Development Schools. They published an article called Collaboration to Promote Social and Emotional Learning, Promoting Resilience During COVID-19. And I know that was the first time Jenny and Jess were published, so they were extremely proud. We have immunizations. Typically, school districts at the beginning of the year have so many weeks to make sure that kids are up to date on their shots. And if they aren't, you have to have an exclusion date, and then, you know, you work with families to make sure they get them. Well, with COVID and the last several years, districts have had a little bit of leeway with that, but now it's time that we really have to pay attention. We have 350 students who are behind on their shots, and so we're doing a big push this month. Meridian Health is sending personal emails or personal notes, letters, letting families know what shots their students need. And then we have 5 different locations that have different times for either free or very low cost for our families. And we're sending that information. And then we have at Northside and at Grissom on November 29th, we will also have immunizations available for our families. The nurses are also making personal phone calls every week. Heidi and Eric are collecting that information for the numbers, how many are getting them, and then the schools will be making personal phone calls to families, helping them understand where to go and what that means. Even if a family gets a date set, we will not, our exclusion date is going to be December 5th. If a family has a date set, we won't exclude them if we know that it's you know, being processed. But, you know, here we're fighting with our attendance, and we're battling making sure we have good attendance. So it really hurts for us then to have kids coming to school and to say you can't come. But we also know it's important that we have to have our kids properly immunized. So just wanted to make sure you understood that. Another thing that's coming up is, this is some good work of Brad. With our benefits that we'll be rolling out, he has worked with a partnership with American Fidelity. There's no additional fee for this, but they're going to be setting up one-on-one meetings with every staff member who takes district benefits. And this will allow them to really help all of our employees understand what our benefits are, what they mean, to be able to ask questions, and then to be able to get immediate feedback. And that process begins Monday. And
Dr. Bell helped me with that too.
Yes, so I have to give Dia a thanks for that. I believe Monday may be the date that I'm testing it out to see how it works. December 4th, we have our community sing. Chuck Reynolds is working and orchestrating that, so we know it will be top notch. And so we're excited for that, so mark your calendars. I've been holding one-on-one meetings with our principals, getting feedback of what's going well in areas where they may have some concerns, and we're going to be gearing up for process checks. Most will begin after in the new year, in January, with the exception of Southview, and we've moved that up earlier, and so next Friday, the 18th, we'll have our process checks at Southview. I also wanted to mention November 18th is our last day to pledge to the United Way, and so we're pushing that out in all of our schools. And then President Mearns he had to leave, but I wanted to have a special thanks to Jennifer Mearns. She nominated me for the Athena Women in Business Unlimited Professional Leadership Award. And, you know, I'm just grateful for the terrific team that I work with. You know, it takes a team to do great things, and I'm fortunate to have a great team. And so I appreciated that she put that nomination forward. So that's it for my update.
Any questions for Dr. K? So that Athena luncheon is tomorrow, I think. 11:30. Any questions? Okay. Dr. Reynolds, I wanted to recognize Gabe. So tell me how old Gabe is.
He's a junior.
Junior. So I saw on social media that, was that his first mini marathon?
Yep.
An hour and 31 minutes is what I saw?
Yep.
An hour and 31 minutes on a mini marathon. So what is that mile per minute?
Right about 7, maybe just under, I think.
That's really, really good. So congratulations to Gabe.
That's cool.
And is he going into National Honor Society?
Yep.
Okay, so frankly, I'm more impressed by the 131. So you guys better get, and thank you.
Congratulations.
And Latasha, you got to go too?
I'm gonna go watch my kid cheer on the cars on the sideline.
Okay, okay, bye-bye.
Congratulations.
And the Marion Bright for the Christmas thing, did a student design that?
Yep.
Okay, so who's our student?
Juno Lecty.
Juno Lecty. I love the design.
We're gonna ask her to be recognized either at a board meeting or the community center.
Okay, so showing so the camera can see it. Marvelous. I love it. So thank you.
And we will have Christmas cards coming soon. You've all signed. Everybody made sure they signed for that, and we'll present those next
With
month.
all due respect to prior designs, I love this one. So, okay. Any public comments? Thank you. We're on to the consent agenda. Within the consent agenda, I want to say a special thanks to the Knights of Columbus and Jeff Huff. Coats for our children of a value of $6,400. School supplies kits from Staples. Resolve Tech coats and hats from Ron Crouch. All really doing nice things for our children. And then, as usual, the community has been remarkably generous for Southside Panther Pantry, and we appreciate that. With that, any additional questions regarding the consent agenda?
I just have one correction, minor. I was listed as absent, I was here. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. We'll make that correction to the minutes. Any additional changes, questions regarding the consent agenda? If not, would entertain a motion to approve.
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay. We're on to Mr. Jerome, the financial report.
Thank you. Included in your board packet, I had the financial results for the month of October. 2 more months, it'll be final for the year. Just a couple of highlights. We did today, as a matter of fact, receive our updated state basic grant to reflect our enrollment that we had in September of 4,861. So we expect our revenue for state basic grant to be about 42.4 million versus about the 42.9 that I have listed there in your report. Still glad to report we received the state basic grant each month. No long-term debt payments in the month of October. We will have debt payments in the month of December, and we will receive the advance withdrawal from the local county auditor, about $3 million of property taxes later this week, and we'll get the rest of our installment in December. So ending cash balance of October, a little over $33.8 million in the bank. So that's kind of the wrap up for the month of October. Just tight on appropriations and operation fund, but I've mentioned that before, and we're dealing with that with our little plan anyway, so.
So the issue of the operations fund, we have a legislative session which will be commencing in January. Speak to your legislators about the need to address It's not only our problem, it's a problem in a lot of other
Right.
systems. The operations fund issue. So I know that we're all aware of it and we're all working on it. Beyond that, is there anything, I did not see anything of immediate concern for the board.
No, not in our financial report, no.
Okay. Would entertain a motion to approve the financial report.
So moved.
Moved and second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay. Transfers to rainy day fund.
Yeah, I'll just keep moving along. Normally, I would do this at the end of December. I wanted to do it in November. This was just to handle all my transfers in one evening tonight. What this is, just asking the board to permission to transfer up to $3.8 million of unobligated funds from education fund into rainy day. This, of course, helps us build up the rainy day fund balance. If everything looks like it's still unobligated by the end of December 31, we'll make the transfer of $3.8 million. And I'm just asking permission of the school board to do that tonight.
Well, we love the rainy day fund.
We love rainy day. Rainy day, when you can put money in it, rainy day is good. Yes.
Entertain a motion on that.
So moved.
Moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Next thing is just permission to make any other year-end transfers to make the books balance at the end of December 31, 2022. Asking the board permission to authorize myself to make these transfers for end of the year reconciliation.
And just as we've asked in prior years, that if there are end of the year transfers, that we get a report on those in the upcoming financial
Right.
report in the board meeting.
Sure.
Any questions regarding end of year transfers? Would entertain a motion. So we've got a motion and a second. Motions from Mr. Heater, seconds from Mr. Irvin. All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, construction bids for the stadium project. Those were in our board packet, and I know that, Mr. Jerome, you have your motion in there. We had trimmed the project back and broke it into phases due to bids coming in higher than expected on the restroom concession area.
Right.
And my question for you in this circumstance with the trimming back of the project into phases, we are going to have a surplus from the bond. I assume that goes into a fund to be preserved for subsequent phases.
Well, actually, because we still have the soft costs and the fees for the architects and the design, we're really just really tied up against it, really tied up against the 5.8 million, even by accepting the awards at 5.1 for the construction of the hard costs. But if we did have any, as you say, any surplus costs available, they could be used for other related projects on those sites. That's correct.
And those costs are for the full project though, right?
That's correct. And I do have Ron Fisher here with us tonight, if we did, from our architectural firm from Schmitz, if you did need to help us explain that, because the cost, we broke up the bid packages in case we saw something like this, which was the bids came in fairly high on the restroom area, which we were going to construct. And now we would just really have to come back to the board and do another succeeding subsequent project to include those additional phases.
So is this a GMP? Okay, and we have construction contingency built in for us, and they have construction contingency built in. That's part of, you've
Right.
got that built into the soft costs
Right.
in this case.
That's part of that extra that.
Right. So to answer your question, Jim, there could be a little bit left, but it all depends
Yeah.
upon what you find when you dig this up, and who knows what's under there.
Okay.
Yeah.
During the course of this project, could you guys keep Jim Lowe involved in
He's
these?
attached. He's attached to it.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay, I appreciate it. And Jim, I want to catch up with you at some point on
Sure.
Okay.
right.
And so Brad, do you have anything additional to add on this motion?
No, other than just still asking the board to approve as presented, as I've broken it out, those 4 particular bid packs with their, with the vendors listed that totals the 5.1 $4 million, so.
Yeah. Any questions regarding that? Beyond, would entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, exciting project. We are on to the public hearing. Mr. Jerome.
Yep, I can help do the setup for you on this. To conduct this, what we're doing here for a moment is conducting the public hearing to consider the additional appropriation that I asked for at the previous month's board meeting to allow us to spend an additional $1 million in the rainy day fund in 2022. And that is what we've advertised it in the back of the newspaper. And tonight we come to that portion of the meeting to conduct the public hearing is to see if the public has any response or comment about any additional appropriation for this 1.0 million for purposes of unexpected capital repairs and or payback of funds towards the state loan of the $12 million. It is worth noting that this $1 million of additional appropriation, I already have the funding in place. I already have the money. I just don't have the authority to spend it. So we're not adding to our tax rate. We're not adding to any of our debt here. You're just giving me the authority to have it in readiness in case I need to spend it over the last 2 months.
Okay, we will at this point open the public hearing on the transfer, proposed transfer of $1 million from the rainy day fund for purposes of unexpected capital repairs and or the payback of funds towards the state loan.
It's really for the additional authority to spend, yeah.
Yes, the authority to spend it in the event it proves necessary. So, would ask the public at this point, is there anyone who wishes to be heard on this issue? Is there anyone from the public who wishes to be heard on the motion to consider an additional appropriation from the rainy day fund, understanding that this is money which has already been allocated to us? It's in our rainy day fund, does not affect tax rates in any way, shape, or form. Anyone wishing to be heard? Hearing no one, I would entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved. Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor of closing the public hearing, please state aye.
Aye.
Got myself lost there. Now we're on to the additional appropriation resolution, which I believe at this point we deal with as any other resolution. So
Just entertain a motion to approve that additional appropriation of $1 million.
yes, so that. Anybody want to make that motion?
So moved.
Anybody want to second it? And then I won't pause as much this time. Not having a stroke, I promise you. Say so by indicating aye. Opposed, same sign. Okay. Mr. Jerome, we need to get you off the stage. You're flustering me. I don't have any dialogue. Is there any media inquiry? Okay. Would entertain a motion to adjourn. We'll call a motion by Mr. Heater, a second by Mr. Lowe. All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you, everyone. Have a nice evening.